Hello. It's been a while since my last video, mainly due to other commitments taking up the majority of my free time. However, I wanted to share this video as it forms part of my From Design to Production series that I've been writing and producing for supporters over on Patreon. I'll be going through creating an environment and then creating a scene within that environment. This would include scratch building, geometry editing, changing textures, all the way to setting up environmental lights and then scene specific lighting for models. A lot of these techniques I've used in previous videos and they are nothing new to regular users of DAZ, but perhaps there may be something for everyone here. Before I start, a huge shout out to all the patrons and supporters. Thank you for your continued support. So the first thing I do when designing a new environment is I plan the scene out in my head. I also tend to draw a picture, just a rough picture of where I want things to go. Now I do this in a notepad that I have, but obviously for this video I'm actually going to use paint.net, which is available online and it's available for free, just to give a rough idea of how I want the image to go. Now you need to be prepared that things can change, the limitations of the scene itself, of the assets you have and what you can afford to buy. Can mean that you design a scene one way but actually it ends up looking quite different. You need to be prepared to allow for that. So to start off, I'm actually designing a beach scene. It will include a beach house. The beach house needs to be large enough, or at least give the idea of being large enough to house several people. I want there to be a forest area and obviously a beach. And a road leading up to the house with some form of car park for the actual house. So if we start with this idea, so I've got this side on the right is going to be the sea. Let's get a nice big paintbrush here. We'll just give that a blue. So that's the sea. Obviously this side will be sand, and let's have a green with some trees. I like the idea of having some forest area down here. In fact, it could be good to have the forest on both sides, as that will allow to hide some things. And so here, let's get a nice shape. Yeah, rectangle will do. Have a nice orange colour. So I like the idea of the house being here. I want it being both on the land and going into the water. How far? Well, we'll see. But I like the idea of it being on stilts. And so that leaves this area as part of the beach. So we need some kind of fencing along there. Let's have just fence off. As you can tell, my brilliant art skills. But it is only just a rough drawing, just to give an idea of how things are looking. And the road is going to come from here. This. Meet up with the house. And that there would be the parking, so there needs to be something here. I could decide about that, but I'm thinking this fencing would actually come up and around, probably join onto that, set some kind of boundary. In fact, I like the idea that this is raised and going down to the beach. Some steps, but again, limitations. We'll have to see about that, but that could provide a nice separation there. Let's just meet you up to the house. Okay, so there we go, a very rough idea of the sort of layout that I want to use. Things may change. So now we have the layout in mind, it's time to start working in DAZ. I put the that image to one side. I'll probably sell that as an NFT. I think it's definitely unique, one of a kind. Let's have a look at what products we've got in DAZ to do with beach. Now, I did actually download quite a few new ones that I want to use, or that look like I could use. I mean, ideally, let's hide that aspect frame. Ideally, I want a beach house, something like that, and possibly something like that. It's a HDRI, which I'll come on to when we come to the lighting. There's also this as well. I actually think this was the beach house that looked the most appropriate, but if we open this one up, look at the environment, I'll just merge that into the scene. The difference between opening and merging, if you open an image, it will completely rewrite everything that's on your image. If you merge it in, it won't do that. Now, I had nothing open on there, so I could have just double clicked it and loaded it as it was, but I have a habit of just merging it, so that's why you'll see me use merge a lot. If we hold Control L, that will turn on lights, and you see it's brought all of that in with no grouping whatsoever. Got a whole load of cameras that we really don't care about, so the first thing we do is get rid of those, and then we can see it's moved us to below the ground. So now if we have a look, this is not too bad. I mean, it actually does. It actually does. Let's all I'm doing is just highlighting all of them. I'm going to create a new group. Just leave it as group, and then that'll allow me to turn off the selection, so I can actually show you with my mouse rather than it all turning yellow. That's not a bad beach, to be honest. These trees are pretty crap, and there's something going on that I don't get why it's in the water like that. I think it should be further back, but well, we can change that. So looking at this, this is pretty good actually. The house isn't big enough for what I want, but I could actually extend that just by doubling it inside. In size even. Might have to work out about the inside rooms. Okay, well for now I'm gonna delete that out, and let's have a look at the other house, which was this one. This one I'll just double click. And again, a load of cameras that we don't want. This one is quite clearly designed for looking inside. Interesting texture on the wall, wood paneling, and yeah. Okay, let's try see what we got next. There's an island house that I liked. Far too small. Let's have a look at it anyway. Interesting photo of the sea. See, that I like. It's not quite the design that I want with this. I like the base of that. So I'm thinking yeah, okay, it's it's far too small. I think we're gonna have to get rid of this. Get rid of these trees and this needs redoing. But I like this base. Let's see the cameras, vegetation, the ocean, the boat, and the island. And hopefully we can just, yes, it looks like we can get rid of the individual pieces. So it's a fan, bed, wall, wall. So we're just left with the base. That's good because what I should be able to do, select the base, and let's look and see how it stretches. The X scale. Something you have to watch out for, I want to do this to extreme, is as you stretch something, the texture obviously stretches on here, but also these poles, the wooden parts also stretch. Now the texture you can sometimes fix. If you go into the surface tab, it's a better view, and look at the floor, you see it's got a repeating pattern. If you go to geometry, and you can change the tiling, so we want vertical, I think. I want to change, maybe it's horizontal. Horizontal. You can change the tiling, and what that will do is it will adjust the image. The problem you'll run into is that you'll see the repeats in the image, but that may not be such a bad thing when, bear in mind we are putting a house on top of this, when it actually comes to previewing the image. It doesn't look too bad. You could get away with that. What you won't get away with, however, is the giant chunks of wood underneath. So that's something to bear in mind when you scale these things. So I've scaled that back. What you could also do is you could bring in a new instance of it and put the house on and then delete all the parts and have a second one. But what is sometimes better to do is if you go create new node instance, and it will automatically name it, just click accept, and what you'll have here is an instance of that floor. Now it includes everything, including the steps, so bear that in mind. But you can always just move that next to it, and this way you get a much larger platform, and the poles will look correct. Now as regards to the steps underneath, you'd probably get away, because how many times are you going to show an image in this direction? But if you wanted to remove them, what you can always do, we just move this out of the way. If you click on the original, Tools, Geometry Editor, if you click the steps and hold, zoom in a bit, hold Control as you click each step, and then if you keep Control held and press the plus key, what it will do is it will highlight all surfaces within that area. You notice it's only highlighting the actual steps, it's not highlighting any of this. If you go too far, you can always press the minus key and it will undo. So once you've got that highlighted, right click, you can go to Geometry Editing, delete selected polygons, or Geometry Visibility and go hide selected polygons. Now I'm actually going to go hide. As you can see, that hides those steps from both. Any changes you make to this will be reflected on this. So if you scale something, it will be reflected on that. And if you remove something, again, it will be reflected on that. So we could move this back in. About there. Of course, there's no steps here, but that's perfectly fine because this is actually where the water's going to be, where I plan for the water to be. So now I'm pretty happy with the size of that. I may make it bigger if I want to. All I need to do is create a new instance of the original and just add it onto the end. Now that I'm happy with the base, I'm going to look at getting a beach and trying to fit it around this as per the design that I had in mind. And so I've added the beach in. I'm happy with this. Remember that we are going to be cutting the eye line off with some trees here and a forest area here, so we only need to worry about this sort of size. Now there's this asset here which I liked, because I like the idea of having this acting as steps of a sort. So I'm not 100% sure where it's going to be, but probably somewhere around there makes sense to me. We just have a bit digging underneath, leading up. Get rid of that. Drinks. Now don't worry about the wood not matching, we'll sort that out later. But we need to make it longer and thinner. So if we go to our scale, we've got X and Y and the Z scale. We start with the X to make it thinner. Let's focus on it. Now that looks about right, and then the Z scale, you want to make them too long, but long enough that it reaches ground. So that's a little bit too long, and that doesn't look quite right. I think I'll make it smaller, but what I'll do is I'll actually lower all of this so that it does reach the ground. So if we start with that and that, find where that's gone. It's gonna lower it separately, that's fine. Something like that. There can be a little step up. I think that looks fine. Obviously we can do some fine tuning later. I may make that a bit smaller. We'll see. We'll see how it looks when the actual house is on, because I think I may need to make this slightly bigger. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is we need some vegetation both here and here, because the road's going to come in from here, car park up here. Okay, so I've added some trees. A lot of these, this was the original, and all I did was take multiple instances and then just adjust those instances to fit how I wanted. Don't worry about these being black and those being green. When we look at the preview, you'll see how they will look. It might look pretty sparse from up here, but when you're at ground level, you won't actually notice that. So if we zoom right down to ground level and you look up, you won't actually see the gaps in the trees. Remember, there's going to be a house here. This is where the road's going to be coming in. I may need to adjust some of these slightly. And you've got a nice thick set of bushes here. And in front of this will be fence. Now I'm actually thinking the next stage I need to do, I've already brought a path and a fence in because I liked this for being the road. Next thing I'm thinking of doing is shutting the dog up